and C-Suite Executive Master Coach, Disruptive Leadership Institute, LLC, New York, Professor Dr. Nuraihan Abdul Hamid, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Asia E University, all deans, senior management of Asia E University, and heads of departments, all esteemed guests and our virtual attendees, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the executive briefing on leading in a disruptive role. My name is Nureen, and I'm delighted to be a host for this enlightening session brought to you by the School of Professional and Executive Education Development SPEED at Asia University in collaboration with the Disruptive Leadership Institute. Today's event brings together in-person attendees here in Kuala Lumpur and a global audience joining us live via YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Wherever you are, thank you for taking the time to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, in conjunction with today's executive briefing session, we are also honored to witness the signing of a memorandum of agreement between SPEED and Disruptive Leadership Institute and the appointment recognition of Professor of Practice to Professor Sattar Bawany. These two momentous occasions mark a significant milestones in our shared commitment to advancing leadership excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, to officially commence our program, it is my great honor to invite Professor Datuk Dr. Ansari Ahmad to deliver his opening remarks.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. A very good afternoon to all, and welcome to Asia University campus. I've been talking too much this morning session, spoke too much in the new address, and my voice is going, so I'm going to keep this short. I think most important, I would like to officially invite my brother, Professor Sattar, who came, I think, from Singapore, not from New York, from Singapore. From Singapore. I think this is your second time here, Professor Sattar, if I'm not mistaken. Second time here. Third time here. So Professor Sattar, welcome again to the campus. I'd like to also welcome our SPEED Council members, Dr. Zakaria, so our SPEED Council member, as well as Dr. Amir, two of our strongest council members who like to help us in many of the our activities here. Let me also acknowledge Philip, who has made this arrangements for us to sign this MOA between ourselves and Disruptive Leadership Institute, which we tried to do it, I think, a couple of years ago, but it didn't really move. But with Philip there, things move much faster, and I think Professor Sattar is quite happy with the responses that we had here from AU in terms of getting this moving. Professor Sattar was here, I think, the last time to talk about disruptive leadership as well. I think we spoke a very quick, just after the COVID, talking about disruption and talking about leadership is required during times of disruptive times kind of thing. And he shared quite a lot of insights in data and insights in terms of how we should maneuver ourselves, navigate ourselves in this crisis times. And we are still in crisis time. We have not got out of crisis time. In fact, if we look at the world today, we're getting more and more complex, more and more uncertain, and more volatile, as you know. And yesterday, our good friend Trump took office. I think he's going to shake the world as usual, with a lot of unpredictability. As well as predictability, some things he's going to do, he's already said I'm going to do. Some things will be totally unpredictable. So that will have a repercussion here. I was just reading today, just now, before I came down, that solar cell manufacturers here, Chinese manufacturers here, who started operations here about 2 years ago in order to escape the tariffs, you have tariffs, kind of thing. Just because Trump has already become the president, they are cutting down, and the presence here in Malaysia. One factory is closed down already. Another one is slowing down in terms of production. And that report said that 80% of the solar cells produced in Malaysia is produced by Chinese companies and exported to US. It's a $1.8 billion US dollar industry. And day one Trump, we can see the effect here in Malaysia as far as solar cells is concerned. There are many other exports that we export here from Malaysia to to US actually is camouflage of Chinese companies operating here and rebranding it as made in Malaysia. So this will of course, whether you like it or not, have tariff implications even on Malaysian companies. And therefore, we are on a watch list. As far as U.S. Department of Commerce is concerned, we're on a watch list on whether these companies are truly Malaysian or not, or are they just fronting Chinese companies, etc. kind of thing. So you can see the impact, and you can see the geopolitical effect of all of this. So I think it's timely that that we have this arrangement with the Disruptive Leadership Institute, DLI. He's got another institute with him, which is the Prophetic Leadership Institute as well. Prof. Sattar has been very active in the prophetic leadership, what they call space. I think he's one of the leaders in the world as far as prophetic, what they call leadership is concerned. And he has shared very freely his material with many people as well as with me. And I think he's always, what they call, accepts any offer to what they call to do training, etc. kind of thing in the space of prophetic leadership. We're just talking to him just now. So perhaps we also should look at prophetic leadership. He has another institute called Prophetic Leadership Institute. Maybe we should look at what we can do together with the Prophetic Leadership Institute here in Malaysia and other OIC countries, because not just something unique to Malaysia, but other OIC countries. And I think they need those lessons. Am I right, Prof? We know that presently the leadership, Islamic leadership in the world is very poor. And how to navigate it and how to understand what prophetic leadership is all about, I think is very critical. So it's a combination of prophetic leadership, a combination of crisis leadership, and also a combination of good sense as far as leadership is concerned. That's what he brings to the table. And he's been in this space for many years, distinguished speaker and trainer in this space for many years. And it's a privilege for us to hear from him, because he does a lot of serious research in this area. So he's got edition 1, edition 2, etc. kind of thing. He's got improvements coming in, because an author as well is very actively what they call involved in these things. He's also very, a very what they call social activist, I might say, maybe I can use that term, in Singapore. He actually raises a lot of sensitive issues in Singapore without fear or favor. And I used to sometimes tell him that, maybe you should slow down a little bit, particularly on matters that what they call infringe on Islamic values. For example, wearing of uniform, nurses' uniform in Singapore. I think you were very vehement about it. They should cover the aura, etc. and all that kind of thing, which Singapore doesn't allow such things. So I think he champions a lot of what they call prophetic, what they call values and norms in Singapore. And Singapore, Muslims are minority, but he takes it up. He does it without fear and favor, because he believes that it's the right thing to do. So we have in our midst somebody who's not just what we call a distinguished speaker. He's also an author, prolific author. He's also a social activist, and he's been talking about leadership, I think, over the last 30 years, not something new. And he personifies the kind of leadership that he, what they call, goes out and trains, because he's not a person who preaches one thing and does another thing. He also personifies what he preaches. I think that's very important. For some of us, we talk different and we act differently. Cakap lain, bikin lain. In his case, he does, S. He calls a spade a spade. If you call a spade, he calls a spade a spade. And he lives by his values and norms. So thank you very much, Prof. Sattar, for agreeing. It's an honor for AU to collaborate with you and have this partnership together with you for training in this space. I think there's a lot of scope for us to work together in this space. And we should look at how we can deepen our relationship, also expand our relationship, not just to Malaysia, but outside Malaysia as well. As you know, we've got a fairly good network internationally. But I think getting it started in Malaysia is crucial, because we got to learn how to work together. And then once we got that smoothed out, this nice oily machine, you machine the oil, we have a machine, you oil the machine, very well, and runs very well, then we can take it out to other parts of the world, particularly to other Muslim nations when we're looking at it. In the disruptive side, we can take it to anywhere. It doesn't have to be Muslim. We can take it to any part of the world. So thank you very much for all of you, and thank you very much to our distinguished speaker and partner this afternoon. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. President, for the speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now honored to witness a momentous occasion, the signing of an MOA between SPEED and the Disruptive Leadership Institute. This partnership signifies a shared commitment to fostering leadership excellence into this disruptive role. I would like to invite the following distinguished individuals to the stage for the signing ceremony. Professor Dr. Ansari Ahmad, Professor Sattar Bawany, To the witnesses, Mr. Philip Lim, Head of Speed, and Ms. Aisha from DLI, please join the signatories on stage. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now privileged to witness the presentation of the title of Professor of Practice to Professor Sattar Bawany by Asia University. This prestige recognition honors his exceptional contributions to leadership development and executive education. I would like to invite Associate Professor Dr. Frank Keong, Deputy Dean School of Management of Asia University, to read the citation for the presentation of the appointment.
Thank you, Noreen, and very good afternoon to all. I'm going to present the citation on behalf of our Dean, Professor Dr. Chowdhury Ali. And it is with immense pride that we present Professor Sattar Bawany, a distinguished leader in disruptive leadership and executive coaching with the title of Professor of Practice. Professor Bawany has demonstrated an exceptional commitment to advancing leadership, development, and organizational excellence. As a global authority on disruptive leadership, his innovative strategies have empowered leaders and organizations worldwide to navigate the complexities of change and certainty in the modern business landscape. With a career spanning over 3 decades, Professor Bawany has been instrumental in shaping the practices of executive coaching and talent management. He is the CEO of Disruptive Leadership Institute, New York, and has held prestigious board and senior leadership roles in renowned organizations, contributing significantly to leadership and organizational transformation. Professor Bawany thought leadership extend to his groundbreaking works, including transforming the next generation of leaders and leadership in disruptive time. These publications have become critical resources for leaders striving to remain agile and resilient in a rapidly evolving world. Beyond his academic and professional accomplishment, Professor Bawany's dedication to nurturing future leaders and fostering innovation exemplify his role as an educator, mentor, as well as practitioner. His work has had a profound impact on industries, government, and academic institutions globally. in recognition of his outstanding contribution to transforming leaders and developing organizations of the future, and his unwavering commitment to excellence, it is with respect and admiration that we confer upon Professor Sattar Bawany the title of Professor of Practice. Let this recognition serve as a testament to his enduring influence and as an inspiration to others to aspire towards impactful leadership and innovation. Congratulations, Professor Bawany, and welcome to Asia University.
Following the citation, I would now like to invite Professor Dr. Noraihan, presenting Vice-Chancellor of Asia University, to be accompanied by Professor Datuk Dr. Ansari to formally present the title to Professor Sattar Bawany. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Prof. Sattar to deliver the acceptance speech.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues and members of the Asia University community. It is with deep and profound gratitude and humility that I stand in front of you to accept this prestigious title of Professor of Practice from the Asia University. This honor holds special meaning for me, not only because of the esteemed institution, EU, which recognize my journey of over 30 years in the field of disruptive leadership and organizational transformation. First and foremost, I'd like to express my deepest thanks to Asia University Senate, Board, and senior management, including, of course, Prof. Dr. Ansari Ahmad, founder and president of CEO of EU, who has the privilege to know over the past 15 years, and I deeply admire what Dr. Ansari has managed to develop EU to an institution that is recognized for excellence in education, innovation, and also for fostering impactful leadership by developing the future leaders, students, especially those who are embarking on the MBA, DBA, PhD, and so forth. EU has been an institution that I've been monitoring over the years, and I've been discussing with Prof. Dr. Ansari on how we could work together to bring bring the organization EU to a greater height. And also, Prof. Raihan, a few years back, we have had a series of discussion, and Alhamdulillah, now with the signing of the MOA between my institution in New York and SPEED, which is the training arm of EU, under the able leadership of Philip Lim and his team, and I believe, inshallah, we can make it happen. And we've together, and I believe that we'll be able to achieve EU mission and vision. Over the years, I have the privilege to observe, work with organizations worldwide, from South Africa, Russia, Europe, of course US, and Asia, across all of China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, India. Many organizations over the last 30, to be exact, it's 34 years, coming to my has been involved in the reinventing the organization, renewal of the organization, has redefined success in the industry. So I believe with this recognition, this award of this Professor of Practice, there is a deep deep sense of responsibility for me to work with EU to further on how we can develop the next generation of leaders and to be able to guide and develop them to ensure they have a sustainable future. You heard Prof. Dr. Ansari talk about the Prophetic Leadership Institute, another institute that I headed out of Medina in Saudi Arabia and Malaysia and Singapore, where we help organizations, predominantly Muslim organization, to blend the Western, the disruptive leadership, and the prophetic values by our beloved Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. And how can we learn? How can we transform? There's a lot to learn, a lot of work that we can do together with AU. With this, just in closing, I want to once again express my deep and profound gratitude to Asia University and all those who have been working with me towards this incredible journey. And the next 12 months with Speed, with Philip Lim, with his team, and also working with EU, maybe with Chitra and the sales and marketing team or EU. And I think there are a lot of things we can collaborate and together bring Asia University, and I believe to a greater height. And there's a lot of potential. We have a visionary leader, Dr. Ansari, and I think, but he cannot do it alone. He cannot do it alone. He has an advisory council of Speed, he has the Senate, we have great senior leadership, DDC, Program, and many other, faculty. Inshallah, I believe with that, let me say that if we work together as one, we'll be able to, for me, to contribute in every way I can, not only teaching the students, also with the corporate clients of EU and Speed, we can continue to inspire, lead with purpose, innovation, and unwavering commitment to excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for the speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now proceed with the highlight of this afternoon's event, the executive briefing on leading in a disruptive role. As we step into 2025, organizations face numerous challenges, from geopolitical instability and climate crisis to supply chain vulnerabilities and agriculture disruptions. This executive briefing will provide crucial insights into how leaders can navigate these complexities and emerge stronger. Prof. Sattar will also share highlights from his forthcoming book, The Making of a Crisis Leader, set for release in March 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Sattar Bawany.
In the vast world of digital leadership and innovation, the name Professor Sattar Bawany stands out as a guiding light of groundbreaking knowledge. His grasp of the intricate aspects of leadership, combined with his dedication to addressing the changing complexities of the digital world, have marked him as a disruptive digital leader. Professor Bawany's commitment to shaping effective, forward-thinking leaders has been steadfast, providing direction in an era marked by rapid change. The past is a crucial chapter in Professor Bawany's exploration of leadership. This is where he began creating the foundation of his leadership philosophies, marking the beginning of his significant contributions to the field. His important work, transforming the next generation of leaders, developing future leaders for a disruptive, digital-driven era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Industry 4.0, as well as coaching in Asia, maximizing the potential of future leaders, sets the stage for his comprehensive leadership approach. Professor Bawany wisely highlighted the need for emotional, social, and cognitive intelligence, stressing the absolute need for leaders to master these skills. His claim that these dimensions of intelligence are not just extras, but essential tools for success in a disruptive era, remains deeply influential.
Reflecting on my work over the past 25 years, looking at transforming future leaders, I have identified competencies that are critical to ensure a sustainable leadership pipeline. Starting in 2010 with the book Coaching in Asia, and as a follow-up, in 2019, I published a book called the Transforming the Next Generation of Leaders in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We have identified specific leadership competency, including emotional social intelligence, that future leaders need to possess.
The present, where volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, the essence of the VUCA world, dominate our reality, sees Professor Bawany's vision evolving further. His book, Leadership in Disruptive Times, presents a refined leadership blueprint for our VUCA-dominated times. This includes the RED model, reality, expectations, and development, and the Paragon 7 framework. The RED model offers a comprehensive guide to leaders on how to realistically evaluate their current situation, set achievable expectations, and emphasize the importance of continuous learning and growth. In contrast, the Paragon 7 framework outlines 7 cognitive readiness skills: mental cognition, attention control, sense-making, intuition, problem-solving, adaptability, and communication, providing leaders with a complete skill set to navigate the turbulence of the VUCA world. As we move towards the unknown waters of the future, Professor Bawany, with his experienced wisdom and insight, introduces 2 innovative leadership models: the crisis model and the leader framework. Unveiled in Leadership in Disruptive Times, Negotiating the New Balance, the crisis model is a guiding light in stormy waters, guiding leaders through tumultuous times. Built on the pillars of communicate, resilience, intelligence, shift mental model, inspiring, and set the recovery path, this model is designed to foster a resilient leadership spirit capable of weathering any storm. Further, the leader framework embodies his foresight and readiness for the challenges that lie ahead, defined by leverage organizational learning, embrace experimentation, foster agility, decisiveness, empathy, and resilience. The leader framework stands as a testament to Professor Bawany's strategic insight into future leadership skills.
In today's era of the digital-driven and disruptive business environment, we have found that successful leaders demonstrate what we call the disruptive leadership competency, including agility, adaptability, innovative-driven. And together, all this competency we have described in best practice case study in the book in 2020 called the Leadership in Disruptive Time.
Moreover, in the same book, Professor Bawany explores the shifting dynamics in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic, now an endemic, has left lasting marks on businesses worldwide, demanding leaders to reassess, reevaluate, and redefine their approach. The new balance is the stability in the new normal, a world forever changed by a global health crisis. What does it mean for businesses to balance sustainability with the needs of their employees? What new skills will leaders need to develop to thrive in the post-pandemic world? How will work evolve in this unknown territory? The book attempts to answer these important questions, offering invaluable insights for leaders tasked with managing significant challenges now and in the future. Thus, as we trace the evolving journey of Professor Sattar Bawany's work on leadership, we see a story not just of personal growth, but of shared learning. His teachings act as a mirror reflecting the changing times, as he continually shapes his models and frameworks to suit the demands of the era. His relentless quest to prepare leaders for disruption, equip them for the complexities of the present, and strengthen them for the challenges of the future is a testament to his enduring dedication to the realm of leadership.
In 2022, we interviewed over 529 CEOs and C-suite leaders, asking them what it takes for them to be successful during the COVID-19 pandemic and the digital disruption that's impacting the organization. And the common themes that come out from this research for these leaders, they have been demonstrated a set of competencies that we collectively call the Leaders Framework. And this is published in our book called the Leadership Disruptive Time, Negotiating the New Normal, that was published in May 2022. live streaming? So, where is it? Yeah. Okay, so the title that we have chosen is called Leading in Disruptive World. And I will share the leadership lessons that from the front lines, what we have embarked on since 2010. So it's about 14 years of research, but it goes back all the way back in 1996, 97. So I'm not sure how many of you, I'm sure that some of us here were around, but I can talk about the Asian financial crisis, what happened, global financial crisis, and also talking about COVID and what is a future crisis that we can anticipate. And it's all based on research that we have done, as I said, starting from 2010. So, but I only put the 4 books. There are several other books earlier, much earlier, from 1995 and so forth. The research that I'm going to share with you is based on the work that we have done since 2019, which is on transforming the next generation of leaders for the Industry 4.0, which is the digital disruption, what lessons we have learned, and the 2023 revised edition of Leadership Disruptive Time, which is the looking at lessons from COVID-19, and looking at the climate crisis, looking at the future crisis because of the geopolitical lessons from the Ukraine-Russian war, which is included, and also future pandemic and so forth. So these 2 books are available. These are out of print, so you're going to be out. Take some in US. All books are all published in the US by Business Express Press. So today I have these 2 books, and they are available for sale at 40 for only for AU. We are giving 40% off. So please get. And for those of you who has your head of HR or your CEO, and it's very important for the CEO, get a gift for your CEO, because especially this book is about how to prepare for the future disruption. And I will talk about Trump 2.0. You have to be prepared. All organizations, all countries have to be prepared. And I talk about this actually a little bit about Trump first administration. What are some disruption? I go in more in depth. And also for HR and for you need to know how to develop future leaders, how to plan, develop future pipeline of leaders, and how to identify, assess, select, and develop leaders in the disruptive world and in the what we call the digital revolution. So the first book, Transforming the Next Generation of Leaders is available. So I'm going to share all the extract of the research into this topic, which usually is a 2-day workshop in 1 hour or 45 minutes. So you can imagine. So, but I help you by putting things in graphical or in what we call images. It's easy to remember. Identity details. You go to the website. Some of this research is made available free on my website, disruptiveleadership.institute. You can look at all the models. So you want to get book, and the book has all the, especially this book has a lot of research on what is the future looks like, what are the disruption, and I'm going to talk about them, 6 of them. Okay. So I'm going to ask you now that, and to talk about Trump, and I'll talk about. I was up until 5 a.m. listening to Trump's 3 speeches besides the inaugural speech. He was at the Capitol, what do you call it, arena where he has his supporters, and there was another event which he was signing off in Oval Office, the issuing executive action in the afternoon, and he talked about to the press. Of course, you need to fact check what Trump mentioned. I'll talk about some of the things that is not true. But I will talk about that and why you should be concerned. And we should be concerned. All organizations, all leaders, irrespective whether you are in the government or you are in the private sector, NGO, there will be impact. Some are minute, some are huge impact, depending, like Dr. give an example of the solar Chinese company in Malaysia. So there are many organizations going to feel the impact, and you need to be prepared. Okay? So can I ask you, anyone here, one word, including those who are streaming, we are on Facebook Live, I think, I'm not sure, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube Live. So if there's any response, can you just let me know? Anyone? One word. Trouble. Okay. Okay. Opportunity. This maybe dah baca lah. Dah baca main buku lah. And I'll talk about that. It's a Chinese word, Wei Xian. Yeah. Anybody else? No, Wei Qi, sorry. Wei Qi, Wei Xian is Qi Hui. Anybody else here? Where are the faculty? Anybody? Put a hand. I want to ask faculty normally. Proper hand. Sorry? Uncertainty. Is that all? Come on. Adaptation. Okay? Adaptability, yes. But normally when we talk about crisis, what do first thing that leaders or anyone that come to mind, what is the first word? Solution. No. Fear. Yeah, fear. Oh, what are you going to do? What's going to happen? What are we going to do? How do we resolve it? Are we prepared for it? Are we ready for it? And many organizations and leaders are reacting, taking a reactive path to it. But today, we cannot, no longer, you have to be proactive. You need to plan. You need to be prepared on how do you manage those challenges as they come forward, as you face them. How do you navigate these challenges? And I'm going to talk about this today. And one of the biggest challenge is because, Einstein says that, I paraphrase, says that you cannot solve the problem of today with the same level of thinking that created them. Because what happened is we tend to rely to the past experience. Now, I'm not saying you don't rely on past experience, but a lot of time it doesn't work. What get you here today won't get you there in the future. You need to reinvent what we call the disruptive mindset. You need to reinvent your way of thinking, challenging your mental model. That is the biggest challenge. Okay? So the way I define crisis in my latest book that's coming out in March, you can pre-order the book if you want. You can put your name there behind. One of the things that I talk about, crisis, is a series of events that would have a profound impact on the organization, which result in instability, uncertainty, or what we call earlier, in the video, VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and the D. Now you call it VUCA. In the latest book, I use the word VUCA, V-U-C-A-D. D is the disruption, and disruption is continuous. And we can expect things to be, next 10 to 15 years, is going to be much more. And I will tell you why, and I will explain this based on our research, why it's so important to be prepared. Now, again, we talk about crisis, you're right, we talk about crisis. Normally people shouldn't talk about fear or danger. People say, oh, crisis, we are panicked. What do we do? How do we react? How do you respond? How do you manage? But if you look clearly, the word crisis, the Chinese has a word called Wei Qi. Wei Qi comes from two words, Wei Xian and Qi Hui, means that in crisis, there's always opportunity. And of course, the JFK, John F. Kennedy, uses that to be able to explain when he took on the role at a very, very, very difficult time. The war, the potential war, the crisis, the Cuban crisis with Russia. Those days called it Soviet Union, USSR. And you need to know how to manage and how to maneuver. And it's not everybody have the ability. But the good news is that today, you can develop the skill. You can develop and you can leverage on tools that is available out there that can help you to prepare. And that's what I'm going to talk about. How do you develop your leaders, your future leaders? Okay? And we need to be familiar with two words, the poly crisis and the perma crisis. How many of you heard of this poly crisis? Perma crisis? No? So in my latest book, the 2025, this Making of Crisis, so I explain that the poly crisis is when you have multiple crises happening at the same time. So when you have the COVID-19 as one crisis, then you have, of course, the financial crisis, or you have economic crisis, and then you have the crisis, result of that, you have the crisis of the supply chain. So there are multiple crises happening at the same time, and it's not easy to maneuver. And this is the challenge that we face today, because how do you get leaders to start looking at all these challenges? How do you maneuver? How do you navigate? And how do you handle multiple interconnected crises? And the other one is called perma crisis, which we are experiencing today. There's a COVID-19. COVID-19, it was first reported by China on 31st December 2019 to WHO by the Chinese government. But it already happened in my book in 2020, the first edition of the Leadership Disruptive Time is focusing on COVID-19. And I wrote about the research by Chinese reported by Lancet, reported by British Medical Magazine and so forth. Actually, it happened before 2019 December, probably in October or August, as far as August, but the Chinese did not report it. And after today, the Chinese government has not been, and this is what I'm telling you, is all factual, you can search for it. WHO is still searching for answers as to how did the COVID-19 really, they said that the Chinese government said it's from the seafood market, and in Wuhan. But actually, my belief, based on my research, I believe it is from the lab, where there is research being done on a level 4 security lab on because of people who were involved in the lab were found to be sick. So, and up to today, that was in 2019. Of course, in Malaysia, we had the MCO in March 20, I believe, the MCO, and many countries, subsequently, we have the different lockdown and so forth. So 2020, 2021, then 2022, early, the WHO announced that the pandemic become endemic, as I mentioned in my video. So today is endemic, and probably I won't be surprised among you sitting down here, one or two of you probably have the COVID in you where you don't know. And this is something become like a normal, like a flu, seasonal flu. It's not going to go away. It's going to be here forever, and it will evolve and adapt in some form. So that's called the perma crisis. And we wonder, and I'll talk about what a future pandemic we can expect later. So the question is this, so when I was embarking in 2022-2023, research about 529 CEOs, C-suite leaders, the question is, 3 questions I asked. The crisis over the last 20 to 30 years, what are the crises that you are involved in? How do you manage it? Not all are successful, but there are leaders who are organizations are successful. How do you overcome it? That's number 1. So what are the past crises? What do you do it right to survive until today? Question is, the next question I ask is, what do you anticipate in the future? What are the other crises do you anticipate in the future? And then from here, then my team in New York, we develop models and we come up with hypotheses. Where do you see moving forward? What are the 6 most potential disruptor that you can anticipate the next 10 years? And most important, how can you prepare your leaders? That's the last question. How do you prepare your leaders to manage this disruption? And this is where in the book, the 2023 book that's available behind, that we talk about leading in disruptive time, negotiating a new balance. The detail of the research is found in there, and what are the thoughts of this leader? What are the practices? What they do it right? And the lessons that I publish started with what we call the Asian financial crisis. How many of you can still remember that? Or anybody else was in business? Sean? Anybody else? I was with Hay Group. I was a senior consultant. Back in Hay Group is global management consulting, focusing on organizational transformation, human resource development, leadership development. So back then, there's a lot of company. It started in Bangkok, okay, Thailand, and Indonesia, and bringing the downfall of President Suharto. Malaysia was not spared because that's where the debate by Tun Dr. Mahathir and the current Prime Minister about whether you need to have IMF help. So you need to understand there's a huge impact. So, but it started primarily in Asia. But a lot of companies are affected, okay, not in the banking sector primarily, tourism. Then we moved to 2000, when I was in Silicon Valley in Bay Area, where we talk about the dot-com bubble. But that is very limited to technology companies. So we don't see the impact, but there's still a crisis because overvalued. You see everyone wants to go for IPO. And you find that overvalued stocks, which cannot generate revenue, but they are being listed and been sort of to the stage where it just bursts. So that's a dot-com bubble. Then that's 2000. Then, of course, September 11, 2001. And I was in New York 2 weeks before that. And it's very interesting to look at September 11 to the World Trade Center. Nobody will expect what happens at September 11. I'm not going to go into that, but there are companies that thrive. There are companies that anticipate, not because of September 11, but they are prepared. The leaders are prepared for such calamity. For example, those in travel and tourism, they were badly affected, but travel was curtailed. Okay, travel was curtailed. So there are companies that invest in technology, like what we have during COVID. We have this Zoom, WebEx. It's not new. It's been around. The teleconference has been around for September 11. That has been prevalent. So that was lesson, and we find some company invested in the right technology to help their business to continue to sustain. So then we have the 2008-2009 global financial crisis. This is where the Lehman Brothers, the downfall of Lehman Brothers, then you have the banking, you have the mortgage crisis, and it affects many other businesses, Asia, not only worldwide, but you see the fall of and the merger of Bank of America and Merrill Lynch and so forth. So again, this results in a lot of companies in Malaysia, Singapore, in Asia, worldwide, people being retrenched. And companies have to decide what they need to do, how to sustain the organization. So that was in 2008-2009. Of course, I wouldn't have to mention about COVID-19. We know the impact of COVID-19 across all sectors, across all industry. And what has happened is that many organizations, government are not prepared, including Malaysia. there are a few government better prepared. New Zealand, Singapore, even the US, they're not prepared. They do not know, and a lot of things. It was chaos. So the first 1 year was chaotic, and about vaccine and so forth, about ensuring the equal distribution. So if you look at all these lessons, so what I found, and I put it into the model called the crisis model. How do you manage it? How do you prepare for future crises? So there are lessons we can learn. And then the third question, the second question I asked was, I asked these leaders, these 529 CEOs and C-suite, what do you see as future disruption to your supply chain? Because when you talk about COVID-19, the major disruption is the supply chain. So when the Chinese government decide to close Wuhan, it's a city which, I believe it's 60 million. It's huge. So when the Chinese decide to close the whole province, I forgot to just slip my mind the province, Wuhan, anyway, 60 million, and there's a host of manufacturing facilities around that area. So in Wuhan, it was a center of manufacturing. Just imagine the supply chain disruption caused havoc. So the question now is, we need to learn from this experience. How do we protect our supply chain? So one of the things that we need to be mindful is the impact of climate change. Why climate change? Why should we bother? And Trump believed that climate change is hoax. But, he withdrew from the Paris Agreement. First time that he became a president in 2017, one of the first few executive orders is to withdraw from the Paris Agreement, Paris Accord. And he still believes that it's a hoax. But climate change results in flood. It results in the, you can look at the forest, for example. We look at Jakarta. Why do the former president, what is his name? Jokowi decided to move from Jakarta to in Kalimantan, because Jakarta, in every year, the rise in the water sea level, in the next 20 years, 25 years, Jakarta will no longer be livable. So this is something you need to be prepared. So what does it mean? It means that you need to be prepared if your business are involved. There will be disruption in the supply, food supply, disruption in terms of the impact on flood. And let me give you a real example of flood. In Malaysia, we experienced it last month in the East Coast corridor, Kelantan, Terengganu, to a certain extent, Pahang. And but for Malaysia it's been ongoing. But for a country who had never experienced flood, suddenly we see this is becoming prevalent. So what do we need to do? We need to be able to think, how do we mitigate the risk by ensuring that we do not experience this? And one example, good example, is Toyota. Toyota has a huge manufacturing facility in northern Bangkok. Okay, and actually they have experienced massive flood in 2012 because of the way the infrastructure and also the rain. There was for that month in 2012 in December. It was very unfortunate that it was continuous rain, and that disrupt the flow of the supply of parts from Japan, from China, from other parts into Thailand to assemble. Because Toyota has a huge facility in Bangkok. So you need, what they did right was they decided, they learned a lesson, and then they decided to have mitigate the risk by having different facility outside in Indonesia, in Batam, or having in Batam, there's one area in Indonesia, and also to have in Vietnam and so forth. Number two is interesting, is about Trump 2.0, your new world order. So one of the things that we ask is, what do you anticipate is protectionism, or what we call the, in Trump word, America First philosophy. Okay? Meaning that we have been talking about globalization for more than since WTO. WTO in 2000, when WTO was formed, the word globalization become, it's not really before WTO, but even before WTO, multilateral agreement, trade agreement, where countries are opening up their borders and encouraging investment and trade between a country, between blocks, like ASEAN. ASEAN has been around since 1966, and ASEAN has signed FTA with various economic blocs across the world. But what is happening is the new world order today is all about protecting my own country. And Trump, first presidency, he make it known. To make America great again is America's first. And he's prepared, and he did that. He challenged the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement with Canada, the UMCA, the Mexican US trade agreement. And again, he threatened that in the second during his campaign for this current administration. He said that he's going to revoke, or he's going to put into tariffs, huge tariffs between cars made in Canada, Africa, Mexico. Of course, the huge disruption going to come. Dato gave an example earlier about the Chinese company, that Trump make it known at least 60% tariffs will be imposed on products that are made in China. And between 10 to 20% tariffs will be imposed on products made from other countries. And of course, if you look at his speech, one of the speeches, I can remember where, one of the speeches yesterday, he mentioned that, oh, he's proud. We have managed to save $700 billion taking away from the Chinese because of the tariff that he imposed from the first administration. Actually, not true. The money is not from China. The money are the tariffs that he imposed on American companies that brought in the Chinese products. So who suffer actually is the American producer, or American companies that brought in these goods and sell to the American. What he's trying to do is to make those goods expensive, so to allow the American companies to be competitive. But he forgot, when you do that, the prices of goods are going to go up, because the local companies will have to pay for the taxes, not China. Because we need product from China. Because the goods come from China, the parts. And what Dato mentioned just now is true, because he's now going to look, where do these goods are manufactured? So you can have a factory here, or in Singapore, or in India. So he will look at the origin. Where is this good manufactured? Even if it goes to India, they repackage. In Malaysia, there's a lot of this repackaging or reassembling. So he's going to go into the origin. Where are the parts? Where they come from? Now, what does it mean? It means that companies are going to feel disrupted. The business supply chain is going to be disrupted, because you're going to have new tariffs. You're going to make business less competitive. The other, the New World Order, and I'm more concerned, is the American. In my book, I mentioned about the challenge to the US dollar. US dollar as a global trade currency. And this is going to be the reality, the BRICS and Malaysia, PMX. I think PMX as a leader, my research is both business and political leaders. And I can say this, that I think he's one, without talking about politics, but as a political leader, looking at what the success over the last 1.5 years, a huge phenomenal challenge that he has to face, but he's moving in the right direction, in my assessment. And I think Malaysia joining BRICS, not at the expense of ASEAN, so this is very delicate, because this year is very delicate, because Malaysia is the chair for ASEAN. But Indonesia, under President what's his name, Prabowo has announced, and he decided we're going to join BRICS, and he now just announced full membership. Malaysia is now just as an observer, but Malaysia planned to be full membership. Now Trump make it very clear. If BRICS is going to threaten the US dominance, is going to put in place again sanctions, put in place punitive measures against the BRICS nation to punish those countries, to ensure that US remain dominant, the US dollar remain dominant. But I think in the short term, next 10, 15 years, the US dollar will remain because it's a major trade currency. But China is pushing very hard to ensure that BRICS is going to be a very powerful trade bloc. And many countries are trying to join BRICS, including Malaysia. And BRICS basically stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China. The original 5, S stands for South Africa, the 5 countries. Since then, there are many other countries that have joined. So that is a new world order. What does it mean? Is that you need to be able to be prepared for the disruption to your supply chain, the way of doing business, and are you ready for that? Have you found alternative sources? Have you found ways how to navigate your manufacturing? Then we have, this is more serious, geopolitical tension. One of the biggest challenges we're going to face, and we have seen it for the last 10 years, or last 15 years, in Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines are the claimant of the South China Sea. China has made it known that is ours. That's their territory. Because this is very significant because China is asserting aggressively. So if you look at what happened to Philippines went to the, I forgot the body, I think UN, and also there's a body, the UN law of UNCLOS, UN law for sea or something, where they make known that the Chinese have gone into their territory, the Chinese Coast Guard. And you see news, the clashes. And Xi Jinping, the current president, is not going to let go. He is very dominant. He wants to ensure that that is China, right? And China is not going to let go. And I will talk about that in a short while, why Xi Jinping. Trump is grossly mistaken if he thinks that, from the first administration, he has bullied China, he has get away with it. But will he get away in the second term? And I'm more worried about the Taiwan Strait. In my book, I talk about the potential war. This geopolitical tension, there are 2 wars I talk about. One war is the current ongoing Ukraine-Russian war, which is still ongoing, and is disrupted supply chain. One of my clients is Porsche in Germany. When the war, and in Kiev, Porsche has a factory which makes their cars. So during the first 6 months, huge disruption, they have to close the factory because there's no way they can get parts across because of the war, the flights, and Russia bombing, bomber, attacking, and they have to disrupt Porsche and many other European companies which is based in Ukraine has to stop manufacturing, and they disrupt their organization. So are we prepared? So you need to diversify. You need to be prepared, and that's one in Europe, okay. But let me talk about in Asia. I'm not sure whether in the next 5-10 years, but I can bet you in the next 15 years, we have to be prepared that China, Xi Jinping, and you need to understand, China and US is only 250 years of history. The Chinese has a 5,000 years of history, and we cannot take things lightly. You need to be prepared. There will be war. If US decided to defend Taiwan, and I don't think, and I say this because I don't think when it comes to the situation where the Chinese and the Chinese will want to reunite Taiwan. They have got Hong Kong, Macau. The only one left behind is Taiwan. And next 10 years, 10, 15 years, and they do not have the military strength now. They only have one aircraft carrier, the Liaoning. In terms of superior military power, the American has clear advantage. So the Chinese know that, and they're catching up very quickly. And they don't have the naval power, the air power, but they can make an attempt to provoke and to see how US react, and there will be. And Xi Jinping is one leader. You studied about Xi Jinping. He's today now regarded, he has changed the constitution. He has now become regarded as the equivalent to Deng Xiaoping. And he wants to be regarded as the father of modern China, Mao Zedong. And you must understand why. You must understand, read about him, read about his biography. Why does he? Because of his father. His father was a general in the southern garrison in China during Mao Zedong era. And during the Cultural Revolution, the father was purged, and was jailed, and he's trying to redeem the name of the father. And Xi Jinping is a very shrewd, very powerful, and he has made known that he's going to be there for a very long time. As I said, usually Chinese president typically will stay for 2 terms, 5 years each, and then the Supreme Assembly will re-elect from the Chinese Communist Party Central Committee or the CMC Military Commission. So today he has removed all this, his opposition. He has executed a lot of his people who are a threat to him. And you look at Xi Jinping, and Trump will, in my view, is that Trump today, yes, because of military superior, the superiority in the military, the way that the US, the 7th Fleet, if you look at the 7th Fleet, I had the privilege in 2006, I was invited, because being a chairman of the American Chamber in Singapore, I was invited to be on board the US aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan. It's a nuclear submarine. And it's part of the 7th Fleet that is based in Japan. And US huge power. But the question is, of course, the US is based in Japan, is to counteract the North Korea and Russia. Those days, Russia. Because Russia, Soviet Union, because Vladivostok, which is in the eastern part of Soviet Union or Russia, the port, which is the Sea of Japan. And US placed the 7th Fleet there to prevent Russia, aggressive, or Soviet Union at the time. And it's still there. Today they are defending Japan, South Korea against North Korea, and of course defending Taiwan against China. So we can expect the geopolitical tension is going to happen. So what happens if there's a war in the Strait of Taiwan, and 60% of the trade for Japan, China, Korea all pass through that strait? What's going to happen? It's going to be blocked, and what's going to happen to our supply chain? So we have to be prepared, and this is a possibility, it's a reality. So there's a geopolitical tension. Fourth, one of the disruption is the disruptive innovative technology. So we have seen metaverse, we have seen AI, we have seen Gen AI, Web 3.0. All this technology which is going to disrupt and is continue to disrupt the way we do business. Many companies are not ready for it. But there's one technology that you have to be prepared, which is GAI, General Artificial Intelligence. General Artificial Intelligence. Artificial Intelligence basically means that you have a system that is with huge data. Look at past experience, knowledge, look at how decision making can be done rapidly through past, past actions or past historical decision making. But GAI, General Artificial Intelligence, is not available yet. However, the US military, Israel, are using it in, recently there was, 2 weeks ago, there was a report was published in the US by a defense journal about how the Israeli using such technology to target bomb selected area in Gaza. And the danger about GAI, whereas AI or Gen AI is used, you still have some control because you need to make the decision, you make recommendation, what you should do in this scenario, you can decide. But GAI, basically it becomes like human. You have the human cognitive, you have human thinking skills, he can decide by his own. Now that's dangerous. In other words, you have a system, take away the function, your cognitive function, your emotive, affective, and decide where to bomb, where to hit, decide what to do without intervention from human. Whereas the generative AI or AI today that you talk about, there is still human intervention, decision making. Now, I'm worried because what it means is that, of course, in war, they are, and I believe the US DOD are doing it, they are testing it, and that's why the US, you must understand, the war in Russia, US is supplying a lot of equipment, a lot of weapons to Ukraine. Okay, and of course the defense industry would depend on war. And this is where, US will continue to be involved. When you talk about the Iraqi, Desert Storm, you talk about Afghanistan after September 11, and that's how they test all the weapons. But this new weapon, new class of weapon, and this also can disrupt businesses. In other words, you have companies who are depending on technology who can decide on taking action without your intervention. Now, can you imagine that? It's huge. There's a question of risk, question of ethics. It's a lot of questions, but that's a reality. Number 5 is not so great. The reality is already happening now. The demographic shift, the huge transformation from baby boomers to X, now X to Gen Y and Gen Z. So this is continuing to happen, and now you have Generation Alpha, those born after year 2015. Now, the question is this: are you ready for HR? It's less of significant, but this can be manageable. You can prepare organization to help leaders, prepare leaders to how to communicate, how to work with different generations. So it is not as a great threat as compared to geopolitical tension, as compared to New World Order, or as compared to the disruptive technology. And lastly, future pandemic. If you think that COVID-19 is worse, there's one pandemic is going to come. And I've been talking about this for 20 years. There are very few countries prepared. Do you know what is the pandemic I'm talking about? Even Malaysia is not ready. There are very few countries in the world. Even US recently just reported about 3 weeks ago, first death, human death from this particular potential pandemic. What is that? It's an influenza. Do you know what is that? You know what's H5N1? You heard of H5N1? Sorry? Yeah, bird flu. Now, it's huge, because you have birds migrating across the world. Birds can come in, and if that really become from birds to human, so far there's no recorded history of bird from human except first case, this in US, of course in China there are, in Vietnam there have been reports, but first time in US the CDC reported about 3 weeks ago about, and you can Google it, you can find about first time how this bird flu has evolved, and once it becomes transmittable from bird to human, oh, that is going to be huge problem. It's going to be worse than COVID-19 because it can be easily transmitted. So there will be, and recently there are a report of monkeypox. You heard of monkeypox? Yeah? Is it monkeypox you call it? I think in Malaysia there are a few cases. Yeah? And there are new variants of the influenza every year. So you need to be prepared. Again, the COVID-19, there will be a repeat, similar. So are we ready? Can we learn? How do we manage our businesses? How do we get ready? How do we get leaders to think differently? So basically, these are the potential, what we call the disruptive event. Again, as I said, the details, you can get it from the book. You can read more. You can get also examples of this disruption I talk about. So the question is this: how do we then prepare our leaders? How do we ensure that they have the competency, the cognitive readiness, disruptive mental agility, what we call the Paragon 7 in the video? How do you prepare them? How do you get them equipped with these skills so that when the crisis hits, they are able to maneuver, prepare? Today, don't wait until it happens. Now you need to get it ready. So this is the model that we have developed and it's been tested for the last 3 years. Companies have been implementing it both in Malaysia and in US. It starts with communication. How do you develop empathetic listening? Microsoft is very good at this. Satya Nadella, in my book, I talk about a case study of Satya Nadella, how to demonstrate this competency. So that a deeper sense of purpose. First C is communicate. Then you have resilience. How do you demonstrate operational, emotional, and physical resilience? How do you define resilience? Anyone? What is resilience? There's a when we talk about resilience, when someone, organization thrives on resilience, what does it mean? John? No. That's one part of it, but is that all? Withstand external pressure? Resilience, ability to bounce back, right? When you face challenges, how do you bounce back and learn from it and to be able to reinvent or be able to maneuver future challenges? So, and this is something which you need to demonstrate for organization today facing a lot of crisis. Then of course, shifting the mental model, the way we think, leaders need to shift how they think. We need to reinvent our way of thinking. And of course, then you have to have intelligence, decision making, data, AI, use AI to be able to help you to make decisions. Because you need to work at record time, speed, quick decision making, rapid response. You cannot use the same level of thinking. So use technology like AI to help you it's a tool to help you make decisions. Okay? Then you have the inspiring. How do we, when you have crisis, a good example is Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand. Okay, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, during crisis when there was a terrorist attack, or even during COVID-19 crisis, how she rallied, bring people together to be able to bring the community together. So you need to be inspired, you need to have authentic leadership. People can see you through. And lastly, you need to be able to structure a recovery plan. Where do we go? Where are we today? Where do you want to go? The question that people need to know, how do we get there? How do you rally people? How do you bring people to prepare for the future? So this, basically the crisis model, is available in both the 2023 book, and I've updated it in the next book, the 2025. But the 2023 book is the original research. We are very detailed on how, it's a field guide. How do you implement this crisis model within the organization? How do you prepare your future leaders? Yeah? So you can get the book and read up more in detail, how do you prepare. Lastly, for the 2025 book, I talk about the board's role. Unfortunately, a lot of board of directors think that their role is just to sit on board every quarter. I don't know how often your board meet. Sit down. I sit on several boards. Sit down, discuss issues, and let often the CEO run the organization. But the board has to set direction. The board has to be involved in giving guidance, from a governance standpoint. Today, board has to ensure they have to look at the organization crisis management, at the playbook. Whatever the CEO and the C-suite leader develop, the board has to have an oversight. Need to understand and need to be able to identify who are the right people to be able to drive the crisis response plan. Okay? Do you have the right resources? How do you ensure that the organization, the CEO and his leadership team has the right resources? So there's a lot of work the board has to do. And how well prepared are they? So you cannot leave to CEO alone to do this, no. So board has to be proactive, has to ensure, give the right support, of course give the broad overview structure, let the CEO run it, but you need to take ownership also together with the CEO to ensure that organization readiness. Yeah? So again, in the 2025 book, I talk about board's role, and it's a lot of things which, for the first time, I move from the C-suite to the board, and the board has to take responsibility. Okay, before I move to Q&A, let me just, we're on 35. I want to end with a quote that from Arthur Schopenhauer, the 17th century philosopher, German philosopher. He says this, he says that the task is not so much to see what no one yet has seen, but to think, your mental model, to think what nobody has yet thought about what everybody sees. So all of us see this changing. All of us see Trump 2.0. The question is, what are you going to do about it? How do we challenge our momentum? How do you go back to organization? For those of you who are here, where you go back to your company, talk to your CEO, talk to your organization leaders. What are we going to do about it? How do we equip them? How do we prepare them? Okay? So let me now move to Q&A. Any question here based on what we have discussed? It's a dialogue. It's not Q&A, it's a dialogue session. So I'd like to hear from you. You can share your perspective. You don't have to ask a question if you have no question. Share your perspective, your insight. We learn from each other. And also maybe for those who are, live streaming, they may have some questions. Just somebody just look out for those questions. Any question? Or comment? Yeah, sure.
Rob, thank you, Rob, for this very talk. One of the things that keep on in my mind is, yes, we look at all the external factors of crisis. What external factors of crisis. What about internal crisis, which is created within the organization because of personal agendas and political influences? How does organization and corporation survive those kind of crises?
Internal. Yeah, so this is the challenge that it's not new. The question is, to what extent those individuals, by having that kind of agenda, does it impact on the organization's ability to deliver results? All right? So if they are disrupting with the view of challenging the status quo, but with the goal of, moving in the right direction, moving along the direction that the organization has set, it's fine, because that's how you have to manage, you have to maneuver. You need to manage different personality, you need to manage different character, right? So it's up to the CEO on how you manage such individual. But if the person is doing it to such an extent, is disrupting and without reflecting and thinking and have his own personal agenda that is not aligned, and it is to benefit himself, then you need to decide, the CEO, or if he's the CEO himself doing that, the board has to decide. Yeah, so if the CEO is doing that behavior, then the board has to decide whether it's time for him to go. Or you need to have a dialogue with the CEO. The chairman or the nominated member of the board have to have a dialogue to understand why is he thinking that way. But because the role of CEO, there's only one role of the CEO, is to achieve the organizational result that is mandated by the board. That's it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I was an advisor to one board, a bank in Malaysia, a very huge bank, and you have one member of the board who has royal connect. These are appointee, and because of that, the perspective is about challenging everything the board, and he wants to have a say, and it's very difficult because it's a GLC. This is where the courageous conversation by the chairman, you need to have the courageous conversation. You need to be able to look at the various stakeholders, because when you talk about royal family connection, all that is very, very sensitive. So you need to be able to have that courageous conversation and really have that one-on-one and make known that how disruptive, how danger that this person is impacting, the organization. Because at the board level, if you have people like that, then you need to decide whether, either you don't renew. Of course, for me, if having the opportunity to have dialogue, always is important to give the person the benefit of the doubt, have the opportunity, have a dialogue, and make known the impact, the disruptive impact that is making negative impact.
Prof, when we talk about leadership, the tendency is for us to look in an organization, the top leadership. But actually a lot of things happen at the middle level, the middle managers, because they are the ones who are operating basically, That's where the levers are actually moving, the gears are actually moving at that. So are you saying that in an organization, for us to prepare ourselves for crisis, and we live in a crisis-riddled world right now, some people, or some leaders at whatever level they are, at the top or middle level, or even at the bottom level, they thrive on crisis. They thrive on crisis. And sometimes what they call, Sean was referring to, because they thrive on crisis, they create internal crisis because they thrive in that kind of environment. Am I right, Sean? Kind of thing. So are we saying that at the end of the day, to be a successful company, to navigate through those troubled waters, those stormy seas, etc. kind of thing, it is good to have a balance of leaders who are calm, at crisis times, and that those who thrive at crisis times. So you must have a mixed kind of leadership. Because if everybody is, is slow and steady, I'm prepared for this, etc. kind of thing, it doesn't work. Because as we said also, that crisis creates opportunities. And those people who thrive on what they call on crises actually look at opportunities. And they know that, I could take advantage, I could leverage on this crisis and get either for themselves or for the company or whatever kind of thing. So I'm just wondering, what kind of leaders should we have, the mix that we have within the organization itself? The CEO is just one person. You talk about C-suite, you may be talking 4, 5, 6, 7 people. What kind of mix should we have of mindsets within that? I mean, management maxim, says that you want to have a successful team, you must have the 4 C's, etc. kind of thing. But what kind of, we talk about a successful leadership team. What are the kind of mix you should have?
Thanks, Dato. And I think every leader, every managerial, everyone who has a managerial leadership responsibility must be able to demonstrate that crisis-driven mindset that I talk about, crisis model. Now, whether someone thrives, everyone needs to be able to understand that when the crisis hits, you need to be able to respond. So you need to be prepared. For those individuals who thrive on crisis, actually it's a positive, because they are prepared to challenge the way of thinking, but again it's not what it is, it's how they respond, how they do it. And you're right, the important element, the middle manager or the HOD, and these are the people that would be trusted by their direct report, by the team, respective team. So we need to have them, but if they are disrupting or in a very negative way, when they do not appreciate and understand that their actions has a ramification to the organization. For example, if through this driving, being predisposed or being very geared towards, being a crisis, they love crisis, and they create crisis unnecessarily. Now that's very important, because the crisis can be external and internal, both. So the question is what they do about it. If they do it just to create and challenge, sometimes it's a personality. You don't like that person, you don't like the CEO, or you don't like, and you create that crisis, or create that situation to be able to disrupt the organization from thriving. Some organizations are doing very well. So you have that kind of attitude, that kind of mindset, which is not aligned towards achieving the organizational goal. So that's disrupting. So that is a different kind of crisis. So we're talking about crisis is to be prepared. Everyone needs to prepare themselves when the crisis hit. They need to be able to demonstrate being a crisis leader. That's what I talk about. Okay. So for people who create or who thrive on crisis, it's good if their energy are channeled in the right direction. So that's where bosses, CEO, or C-suite leader need to coach. If it's the C-suite leader who is doing that, then the CEO must be able to coach and guide this person, how to harness their energy, how to show them in the right direction. Or get an external coach, exactly what I do. Some organization, as an executive coach, coming in to help them to navigate the right way. So, but you do not want to discourage them, because if they have that tendency, they are doing it in a very positive manner, they are challenging the status quo. Actually, it's good to have people like that in the organization, because it keeps everybody awake. But not to the extent where they are creating unnecessary problems, they are making things difficult for people to work when things are working. But if they want to create that crisis opportunity, then they need to do it in the right way, so that it's aligned to the organization mission, vision, is along what we call the organization strategy. That's fine. So you need to coach these people. Now, my advice, many companies will just simply discard them, put in the cold storage, or fire them. No. So we need to have the dialogue. Why are they? So first thing you need to ask is, why are they behaving that way? How can we harness, how can we benefit from this behavior? Actually, there could be actually a good opportunity for you to put into if you can really guide them, use them to be a change agent, to drive change. So I would encourage, I would not discourage, but as long as you have the right person to handle them, and they are not disrupting for the sake of disrupting the organization. So, and you're right, the middle level, this is not to be forgotten. And a lot of companies just focus on the CEO, and especially Malaysia, GLC. I'm very sad to see, and it's good for me because some of them, these are coaches, people that I've coached, the CEO and the CFO, COO, CIO, CMO. But the question is this, you focus investment on these people, what about the middle manager? They are the one that need help. But they are the one that need, because they are the one who are, as you say, they are the lifeline of the organization. Yeah? I hope I answered your question. Anybody else? Do you have any question from the live audience? From the
Yeah, we do. We have a question from our LinkedIn platform. What advice would you give to emerging leaders who want to develop skills in disruptive leadership?
What advice? My advice is to look at what we talk about, the disruptive leadership model. We call the disruptive leadership. I didn't show it because today I talk about the latest research. But they need to be able to demonstrate those skills. We talk about Paragon 7, we look at the cognitive readiness. How do you combine emotional and social intelligence? How do you be able to create a sense of purpose? And how do you connect, how do you connect the dots, looking at the bigger picture, see the forest, not the trees. So there are skills, and together with Speed, we are running a series of programs. So they can go to our website, look at it, or get the book. The book has a lot of case study, best practice. The answer is it can be done. For those individuals who wants to be able to disrupt, to be a disruptive leader, it's a journey. It's not one time you sit down the training, you finish, you learn. No. So you need to be able to practice and develop, especially the disruptive mental agility.
Right.
That is the toughest. That's the difficult part. But again, on my wife's website, disruptiveleadership.institute, I give an overview of all the Paragon 7, they call it the 7 competency for disruptive leader. Yeah?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
Any other question from the...
I think this is a friend of yours, Dr. Muhammad Asif. He's just asking, how are you? And hope you have a good day and may Allah bless you. So that's part of the message.
Thank you. What's his name?
Dr. Muhammad Asif.
From where?
From the LinkedIn platform.
Okay. Any other question from Facebook or from, no? Anybody here else? Very quiet, ladies behind. Any question? Lily, you want to ask something? You can ask me about anything about leadership. No, but just be disruptive. But don't ask me about politics. Don't ask me about PMX.
Yeah, we do have one question, another one from LinkedIn. How do you measure the success of disruptive leadership within an organization?
So that's where we have the cognitive readiness, we call it the Paragon 7. So we have assessment where we look at the ability, for example, from 1 to 10, how do you disrupt your mindset by asking challenging questions? How do we, when you see the problem, for example, look at Trump 2.0, the question you should be asking is, what does it mean for my company? What does it mean for the country? What does it mean for my company, my industry? So you need to challenge your way of thinking. And you can assess someone through coaching, through psychometric assessment to see how improvement, over a period of time. So there are tools, assessment. We have tools like that. It's all on the website. So they call it psychometric assessment. Lily, you know something?
Thank you so much, Prof. One simple question. Maybe it's a comment or my opinion, Prof. Perhaps adaptive leadership we should consider, because talking about leadership is not only prepare yourself for the risks, crisis. How about in between, when you face it, the challenge, how to come up the solution creatively, innovative. Thank you, Prof. Yes, adaptive leadership.
How you use this model, okay? In the disruptive leadership model, we talk about adaptability. It's not clearly stated here, but in the disruptive leadership, we have what we call the adaptability. Okay, how do you adapt? How do you adapt means, how do we transform from one state to another? You move, how quickly can we move? Rapid response. So it is important, adaptability or agility. Okay, so you have for agility. So you have, of course, the disruptive mental agility. Then you have what we call the emotional and social intelligence agility. How do you move? How do we manage crisis or how manage disruption by engaging your team members? So it's about emotional and social. Then we have what we call the operational agility. How do you run your organization to make sure that they remain relevant? And lastly, most important is the results agility. How do you get results? Even if you fail the first time, how do you adapt yourself to be able to move? You're absolutely right. So adaptability is one element of the disruptive leadership model, which I did not cover here because, I talk about crisis today, about disruptive world. So the adaptability is important. And this is where people have been talking, it's not new. We've been talking about adaptability for many, over 30, 40 years, about how do you adapt when you fail? How do you remain agile? How do you reinvent? We're talking about, earlier we talked about, Sean was asking about, we talk about when your organization facing crisis and how do you adapt and respond in a way quick enough. There's that adaptability, agility. And then when you fail, you bounce back quickly. That is what we call earlier the resilience. Okay? So you need to have to be able to achieve resilience. You need to be able to adapt quickly to be able to move towards agility. So yeah, both together. So it is important. It is important, and that's why I said you need to prepare leaders how to think, how to experiment. Organization need to allow people to make mistakes. But of course, you don't make mistakes to the extent where you destroy the organization, right? So there are certain parameters. That's why one of the traits of a disruptive leader is ability to implement what we call experimentation. Experimentation is trial and error, making mistakes, learn from it, and then you allow them to learn, and then there's something I learned in 1995 from Nokia CEO when I was doing consulting in India for Nokia. Yorma Orilla says something which is very profound. He says that it's okay to make mistakes, but the three things my leaders must be able to do. Number one, they need to understand why they make the mistakes. Why they make mistakes. Number two, they need to find a solution to that mistake. Number three is difficult. Number three, you must have the gut, you must be able to face your peers and explain to them what lessons you learn from these mistakes. Share the knowledge sharing. So the last part is tough. The first two you can keep to yourself. Okay, why I make mistake? I learn. Okay, how do I prevent it in future? The third one you must be able to face. How do people be able to face and tell you? And I make a lot of mistakes. Probably my final book I'll write about is my, not memoir, but I'll write about my failure. In a lot of failure, mistakes. What do I learn to make me a better person? So that is important. So that is about experimentation, about resilience, how you bounce back. Yeah? Okay? Okay, I think we are coming to 5 minutes to 5. Is there any other question? No more from the... No question? Okay, good. So, yes? Yeah.
One last question.
Well, this is the last one.
Okay. What responsibility do leaders have in shaping a sustainable future for the next generation?
What? Sorry, what responsibility?
What responsibility do leaders have in shaping future, in shaping sustainability future for the next generation?
One, you are?
I'm a safety and health practitioner.
from the university? Or?
No. I'm from an NGO, Empowering Women.
Yeah, thanks for the question. The answer is this. It's a responsibility, and at least from Jack Welch. Jack Welch, the late Jack Welch, the former chairman and CEO of GE, legendary CEO, who died 3 years ago. And something I learned from him, he says that the responsibility of a leader is to grow other leaders. First of all, the answer is the responsibility of the leader to grow other leader. Now, what do I mean by that? You need to be able to identify, assess, select, and develop future leaders. So in my 2019 book, you can get a copy where I talk about this process. We need to prepare all the time. So whatever role, you can be HOD, or you can be a department manager, supervisor, you can be a CEO. How do you prepare your successor? And that is the role of every leader. Prof. So we need to be ready to develop future leaders now. And it's not the HR responsibility. The biggest problem that people have this, it's not my problem, it's HR problem. No. It's your responsibility as a leader. If you're the CEO, how do I ensure a successor, make sure that I develop the 3 or 4 people ready now, ready 1 to 2 years, ready 3 to 5 years. So ready now, ready 1 to 3 years, ready 3 to 5 years. So they call it a sustainable leadership pipeline. You need to do it now. HR can facilitate. Now, because if anything were to happen to you, whether medically or you pass on, whatever, or you move on to a new role, the organization needs to be ready to continue the role. So my answer to your question is, it is the responsibility, and is every manager, every leader. When I say manager, basically a leader is a manager. Okay? So a manager has a leadership responsibility. What is leadership? The ability to impact and influence others towards achieving the organization direction and results. Okay? So we need to ensure that you need to have people ready now, 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, who can assume the role when the times come. So you cannot leave it to chance. And this is what happens in some organizations in Malaysia, or you can see some organizations they don't have. They depend on their family members. You can groom them, develop them, but you cannot. A good example, you can look at, of course, what's his name? This Francis Yu. YTL, So they depend on family. So I advised Francis, and I told, look, when I give a talk there, I said, look, you need to also look at others within the organization. Within the organization, or sometimes if you cannot find, some of them, the members not interested, you have to bring from outside. So you need to be prepared for such, like Gamuda, for example. Gamuda bring people from outside. Yeah. So you need to get them ready. Okay? So with that note, if no other question, I want to say thank you so much, Dato. Thank you so much. Having me, I hand over back to MC.
Thank you, Prof. Sattar, for the insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude today's executive briefing, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to Professor Sattar for sharing his profound insights on crisis leadership. A special thank you to all of you, both in person and virtual, for your active participations. Before we officially end, we would like to invite everyone here to join us for a group photo to commemorate this occasion. Following that, we warmly invite our in-person attendees to enjoy the refreshment that we have prepared for you. Additionally, we are delighted to announce Professor Sattar Bawany's forthcoming book, The Making of Crisis Leader, is available for pre-order and purchase at the booth behind. Thank you. Let's take a photo first.